Good morning, everybody. Another episode of the Keep Going podcast, Athletes Shining a Light on Mental Health. Special guest Tami Matheny is in the building. Tami, what's going on?
Good morning, Dave and Pat. I'm excited to be here, starting Sunday morning off right.
I have to start it this way, though. I have to introduce my guy, Big Dave, on a steamboat. Dave, what's going on, man?
How we doing? Not too much. Just another day, another episode. Really excited for the special guest to talk about mental health here.
That's it. And Tami, it'd be a disservice as well if I didn't talk about your podcast that I jumped on a couple months back. Talk about Challenger Deep, how it got started, and just let our listeners know there's another awesome podcast out there.
So, Challenger Deep was the creation of a good friend and colleague of mine, Jeff Heggie. We wrote a book, actually, the same title, Challenger Deep Athletes Rising Above Adversity. And we took some short anecdotal stories of elite athletes and teams and how they used adversity to better themselves instead of seeing it as a weakness. Got great feedback from that, but we started thinking, well, what about the everyday athlete that has the mental health challenges, the adversity? And so that's what our podcast is now about. We invite, like you, Pat, athletes, former athletes, to come on and share their adversities and how they used it to rise above.
I appreciate that, Tami. And anytime I get mentioned on an elite athlete podcast, I'm flattered because I was anything but. But I was awesome to share my story. And thanks again for having me on. And Jeff is a legend. I mean, his career and watching him on social media, does that guy ever sleep? I swear to goodness. Honestly. That guy keeps it moving.
Those videos daily.
Yes, he really does. He's consistent. I believe that consistency is a big part of this. Tami, I wanted to kind of get into the weeds about your sports journey. You know, I know a little bit, but I don't know a lot, and I want to share it with our listeners. Talk about your love for sports and when that got started as a kid.
I think it must have happened in the womb.
Yep.
It had to. My dad was I have a twin brother. When we were born, my dad was a football coach at the local high school. And, I jokingly, but there was some truth to it. I was that little girl and Remember the Titans that would sit on her dad's lap watching those old reels. And, I remember telling my dad what he should be doing at a young age. Um, I jokingly say, our daycare was the field house at the football field.
Amazing.
So I was just always around sports. We lived in a neighborhood, I think 10, 12 guys that were somewhat my age. So it was just every afternoon playing some type of sport, in the backyard. That led to me ultimately playing tennis and basketball in high school and college. And now it's continued with just trying to challenge myself with endurance events, running and cycling.
I love that. And Dave, it's kind of cool to see that transition from football, sports daughter to like mental health, mental performance, and then other sports along the way. Dave, go ahead, man.
Yeah, definitely. I love that journey through your career in sports, how you're always around it. My question going into that, being around athletes your whole life almost, what are some common mental health struggles that athletes go through? And what are some strategies that they can use to get better?
I think the biggest one that I've seen, and I'll have to say this is after I was fortunate after my playing career, and then I got into coaching. And now as a mental game coach, the biggest one I see is that comparison. And I think social media has played into a lot. Again, very fortunate I didn't have to deal with social media because I feel like I have a good mental health foundation, but sometimes I catch myself comparing what other people in my space are doing, and I have to stop and reset. So I think that's definitely I say that broadly, but I think the biggest issue is they never feel like they're good enough because there's always someone out there on social media that looks better, has the better offer, has the better stats.
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece because if you're always trying to get to the top of the mountain, I think we've talked about it, Dave, on several episodes. We're all trying to get to the top of the mountain until we get there and we look up and there's a higher mountain somewhere else. It's like that mental warfare is tough for our athletes. And even in your position, Tami, working at Coastal, correct, was one of your major schools you worked at, correct? Coastal Carolina?
No, I've worked at a couple of Power Four, but I
Yeah,
have
tell me, remind me of the
confidential.
schools. Remind
Belmont
me of the schools.
University was so work with a handful of Newberry, Belmont University
Yes.
in Nashville. I think that's the one you're referring to.
Yes, you're exactly correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And
Um,
I would say with elite athletes, the top of the top, the best of the best, Power Four, Power Five, what is their separator? Like, what gets them to where they want to get to?
I think it goes back to our introduction here with adversity. Um, I think too many athletes, and I'm seeing this at the youth level, their parents are trying to protect them from the adversity or
Yeah.
to fix the problem for them. But those elite athletes, it's almost like they welcome it because that's how they're going to better themselves. And I shouldn't just limit that to elite. The best player on your average team, they usually have the same mindset.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love that. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a really great answer. And even like for myself as an athlete, I feel like I struggled with, not being the best person on the team. Like, oh, someone else is doing better than me. But actually, you're doing a lot better than you think you're doing. And to have that self-awareness is key. Are there any strategies that you can use as an athlete to help you get better in that comparison game?
When I deal with athletes that are struggling with a comparison, I mean, the goal is to make it about you, be the best version of you. So one of the strategies I do is have them really dive into what is their why? What's the bigger picture of why they play and where they're going? And then once they can actually articulate that, getting them to understand that that's probably different than the person they're comparing themselves to. And so it's like now you're comparing apples and oranges because you play for this reason and to go here's where you want to go. Um, so I think helping them understand if I'm true to my why, that takes away a strong bite of that comparison. In addition, then I'll say, okay, stay true to your why, but use their how. So if I'm comparing myself to you, Dave, all right, I've got to be true to my journey. But now, how is Dave doing this better than me? So I turn it into a learning lesson instead of a comparison.
No doubt. And I think there's a lot of power in taking bits and pieces of everybody you've kind of met along the way and making it your own. I mean, you're going to run into great coaching, bad coaching, great teammates, bad teammates along the way. I think making yourself, okay, this is me, but it's kind of been influenced by people along the way. Tami, very similar like the Challenger Deep podcast, we do something here called the keep going moment. And I have to ask you, like, when did you get knocked to your knees? Like, when was that moment when you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I can move forward? Tell us your keep going moment.
There's a handful,
Oh, I've
again.
heard it before. I've heard it before. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sure if everybody's honest, there are a
Yeah.
handful. The one I go back to most recently, I think it was not that recent, but as an adult, I was men and women's tennis coach, director of tennis at USC Upstate. Both we had just transitioned within the past 4 years to D1. We were very competitive at the D1 level despite a small college. And I remember we'd come off an extremely successful spring break trip, and the AD called me into the office. Again, we're competitive. We're the best in our conference. Both teams high academic. I think they were the top two academic teams. Kids were never in trouble. And he tells me, hey, due to budget restrictions and other issues, you've either got to fire yourself or fire your assistant coach.
Oh my
And
God.
I had poured my life into this program for the past, I think at that point, 13 years. And I was just like, are you kidding me? This is like, and I remember being so mad and so irate and um, probably didn't respond appropriately at that moment, internally more than externally. And I kind of went into a poor me self-pity party. Um, but I recognized afterwards how that could be a defining moment and a turning point. And we finished very successful. I was managed to turn it around. We won the conference. And then I walked out on my terms and created my own job. And I always say, if that had not happened, I wouldn't be where I am. But it took me having to get out of the poor me moment to recognize that.
Yeah, shout out to you for just being so people first. Like, it just, a lot of people, Tami, wouldn't have made that decision. A lot of people wouldn't have handled that well. Go ahead.
Well, you didn't see the weeks leading up to that. That's how I was able to.
Yeah.
There were some bad moments, but
Yeah.
I think an important part of any mental health challenge is your support system.
Yeah.
And luckily, I had some great friends, family that were extremely supportive, not adding, yeah, poor you, you've been done wrong, because that just recycles all of the negative emotions, but challenging me to take the next step and to look forward. So I didn't do it alone by any means.
No, 100%. And I'm gonna have to shout out myself for messing up upstate in coastal Carolina. I don't know if that flatters what school I was referring to, but second, we're vulnerable on this podcast. Second thing, I have to ask you, you mentioned family and friends that were a big part of that, and they're probably still a huge part of it. Shout some family and friends that are huge during that time.
Well, definitely my parents. And, I say that they helped me see the best of both worlds. I didn't really understand where my mom was coming on from early on. My dad, again, had been that football coach. It's about doing, it's about all in, no negative emotions, never feel sorry for yourself, suck it up, basically was his motto in life.
Rub some
And
dirt
then
on it. Yep.
what?
Rub some dirt on it. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Then my mom had no clue about sports. Sorry, mom, I don't mean that
Oh my
derogatory.
goodness.
But it was like, oh, you look so pretty, or you were so kind, or I loved how you did this. And she's the type of mom that would give anybody anything, like give the shirt off her back, and always wanted to take care of people, didn't care how you perform. Well, I didn't appreciate that growing up. No, it's about winning. It's about winning and losing. So I think later on in life, I was able to grasp the relationship part from her, and then still have that, go get a mindset from my dad. So the combination, back to the whole upstate situation, the combination of that, I think, giving them the shout out. My dad kept, what you doing next? What's the next step? And keeping me focused. And then mom gave that loving support. There were a handful of coaches at Upstate that have now been clients of mine, that were extremely supportive. There were just so many people. I mean, I was very blessed in that God had surrounded me with who I needed to at that point.
That's beautiful. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I love that. Getting around the right people, talking to the right people about, what you go through can go a far way. And people are here to listen to you. People are here to help you. I think we live in a world where sometimes it's hard just to reach out to someone and say, hey, this is what I'm going through, but it's okay to do that. And that might lead to other and better things down the road.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
definitely. And let me, if y'all don't mind, let me jump in there,
Oh,
because
you
one
go
thing,
ahead, Tami. Yeah.
again, I was blessed with the family support, but one thing I hear from a lot of athletes, well, I don't have that support, or, my parents are who I'm fighting against the most, or they don't get it, they don't understand. But it doesn't have to be your parents. Yeah, it's easier if it is, but just because maybe you don't have the parental support, or a good coach, or a good boss or AD, like the situation I was in, there's always other people. Don't look at that as a closed door. There is someone out there that is willing to help and listen.
You got it. And we talked about it on our episode with Challenger Deep. Like, everybody can fill that void. And I think I'll go on a little bit of a rant here. I think it's a little bit hard when your parents are not around, or your parents are not filling that bucket, or let's just get very broad. They're not loving you the way you feel like you should be loved. And I think when you have coaches like Tami, oh my goodness, would I've loved to play for you? Would I've loved to work with you? Would I've loved to be a teammate of yours? Like, your energy is contagious. And I've said this, and Heather, shout out Heather Gage for connecting us. But like,
Definitely.
your energy early on a Sunday morning is bringing me life right now. I love it. My point
Well,
is, get yourself with people like Tami, like Dave. Fill those gaps. Don't play that victim mentality, is what I should say.
yeah. Well, back to the energy. I think I'm just trying to match yours, Pat.
Oh, you're super sweet,
Feedback
Tammy.
from Challenger Deep was like,
That's
man, this guy that y'all had, he's so energetic.
Oh my
I,
God! You walked me in that room with you and Jeff. I'm like, we could talk for 6 hours. If I didn't have a speaking event that day, we probably would have went for 6 hours. Dave, let's go into Q&A, my man. I'm gonna have you rip it first, Tammy. Go ahead.
all right. Yeah, I got a question for you. What advice would you give to younger athletes about to maybe pursue a college sport their first year? What advice would you give them around mental health?
I think being proactive with your self-talk, and that probably is at any level, not just going into college, but I think particularly that initial semester, first year in college, um, we're no longer the big dog or the best one on the team. And I think we start doubting or questioning, or again, going back to comparison. But my belief is that everything starts and ends with our self-talk. We are where we are through, culmination of talking. So teaching athletes, and not just athletes, this is for anybody out there, but how to talk better. And I like to say, talk to yourself versus listen. When we listen, we hear those question marks, the negative thoughts, the dwelling in the negative emotions. When we talk, we're telling ourselves what we want to do, what we can control, how we want things to go.
Love
Amazing.
it.
I don't know if you guys have watched the Clubhouse, that Boston doc that's on Netflix right now with the Red Sox. I'm watching these guys that are mic'd up every game talk to themselves, and some are really bad, like really, really bad, and they're struggling. And some are like, I'm the best hitter in the world. Don't change anything. I'm the greatest player in the world. I'm like, oh, like I'll get the chills talking about like, why didn't I say some of this stuff as an athlete? So I love that positive self-talk piece.
You're the third person that's mentioned that. I'm going to have to put that on my
Tammy,
list to watch.
Tammy, we're not running an ad right here, I promise. The Clubhouse doc on Netflix, unbelievable if you're in the mental health or mental performance field. Amazing, amazing. So if you're listening right now, go check that out. Tammy, let me know how you like it, okay?
All right, we'll do.
Cool. Second thing, a little bit off the cuff compared to our mental health stuff. Faith. You mentioned God earlier. You mentioned your faith journey. How important is that to you?
Oh, I think that's everything. And that journey has been a lot like my journey. It's been a roller coaster, and there's been times where I'm like, well, if there really was a God, why is he not showing up now? And I think there was some maturity that had to take, place along the way. But if I don't start my day out with talking to God one on one, it just seems like the day is a struggle. Um, so I can't even go into, I mean, I can go into depth, but it's hard to put into words. I used to really get nervous or, oh my gosh, just stress myself over and over before getting on a podcast, before getting on this stage and doing a keynote. But what I've learned to do is give it to God. And even this morning, I'm like, all right, God, give me the words I'm supposed to say on this podcast. And it's like he fills me with, does that mean everything's great all the time or that I just aced every talk? No. But there's a calmness and a confidence. And I like to say we want to move from confidence to godfidence.
The way you talk, Tammy, like inspires me. I know our listeners are going to feel the same way. I'm just extremely inspired by that. Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I love that you lean on your faith. And likewise, I think just part of going through my journey, when I was going through a really hard time, I found God and I found my faith, and it just helped me feel a little bit better, worry a little bit less, and just know that everything will be okay.
Amen, Dave. Proud of you, Dave.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The next question for you is, what do you think has helped you the most when it comes to managing your own mental well-being? I mean, we talked about faith, we talked about self-talk. Is there any other thing that you would want to mention that has helped you?
Those two are definitely the foundation, but I think staying active has been an important part of that.
Nice. Yeah.
I mean, it's just, if I haven't had a day of exercise or movement, then it's like those endorphins are not coming out when I need them. But
Mhm.
I'm a firm believer. Just move. You don't have to go run a marathon or long distance event, but just getting out, walking your dogs in a neighborhood. There's just something peaceful. Again, the endorphins kick in.
I completely agree. I'm like that, Dave. And I have to have that common fight with my fiance about if I don't go to the gym right now, I'm not going to be that pleasant. And those are tough conversations. Like when your physical activity plays, and Dave, I know you're the same way. And Tammy, of course, you mentioned it. Like that's a big part of our day. It's a big part of being who we are. And when you have a lot of people that lean on us at times, and you have a lot of people that God is telling us to serve and impact, you need to do that kind of stuff. It's a non-negotiable, you know?
I'd share a quick story, but I guess it was 2 years ago. I had a shoulder surgery. There were some complications without getting too much into it, but a lung collapsed, and so I could not hardly talk for a few weeks, which was challenging.
Oh my
But
goodness, yes.
the lack of being able to do any kind of exercise for a couple of months, it became a running joke with my family and friends that stay away from Tammy, stay away from Tammy. She hadn't had her
Uh-huh.
exercise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
I will tell you this. It's a part of who you are. It's not your identity being an athlete, running, me in the gym, whatever it may be, but it's part of what makes you you. It really is. And when you get that taken away, we have a couple parents and athletes that are probably listening going, I'm hurt right now. I'm injured. I'm struggling with this. Physical activity is a huge part of my identity. And I'm going to just throw a question B on this. What did you do around that time when you had the injury to kind of double down in other areas?
Well, I really leaned into my faith more, and tried to use this time of preparation. Ironically, by the way, I'm writing a new book, The Injured Athlete, and how to help an
Oh, look
athlete.
at that. All right, let's talk about it. Let's go.
So you just threw me, a lob up here, but
I love it.
I think it's like recognizing, yes, this stinks right now. This is not what I wanted, but I can dwell in it, or I can build a strong foundation that makes me even stronger and better when I do return. Working on my self-talk, working on gratitude. I remember laying in bed and like trying to do like ab work, like just,
Right.
what could I do? When I was able to walk, how many steps could I take, even though it wasn't running or walk? But it became a challenge to find a new daily physical challenge, even if it was not what I was used to doing. And that was the biggest battle of comparing where I had been to where I was, but just kept saying, okay, I'm using this time to get stronger and better.
Yeah, we've had amazing elite athletes and coaches on here that talk about what can I do? What
Mhm.
can I still do? And there's beautiful perspective in that. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I love that answer. For me, exercise every single day is a huge part of my mental health. Sometimes it's hard to get up for me. Like this morning, I didn't want to get out of bed, but I got up. I think one other thing for me is stepping outside and getting some fresh air is
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
away in the morning because sometimes I'll just like, give you a little bit more presence and appreciation and gratitude of like, wow, there's a lot more things going on than just myself in this world.
Yeah, man. I got you.
I,
Well,
I like
go
that
ahead,
point.
Tammy. Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
Go
I
ahead.
was just saying, I like that. I think, we sometimes forget the importance of that. So I'm glad you added that, Dave.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Dave, I'm going to kick it over to you. One last question, and I'm going to have Tammy cap us off. Go ahead.
Is there anything you would like to see changed around mental health and how it is handled in sports today?
Love it.
I think more awareness. I do think we've taken strides in that area. But I am at the high school level as much as the college, and I think we're lacking in a lot of high schools. And that may be area by area or state by state, but the ones I'm in, it's still there's too much. This is a weakness on your part instead of taking it seriously and helping athletes. So that's a broad answer, but we just have to be more aware and trying to understand other people's perspectives.
Beautiful. I love it. I got one more for you. And I'm just sitting here. I have a mom who I mentioned her on the pod with you as well. I have sisters, obviously. I have a fiance who's just a superhero as well. If I'm a young lady listening today, I'm super inspired by you. Like, Tami, you have no idea the impact that you're going to make in 30 minutes today. If I'm a young lady, a young student athlete, a young woman trying to get to where you are, trying to be Tami Matheny, what advice would you give to her?
Don't try to be Tami Matheny. Try to be the best version of you. And I appreciate everything you said, but I do think we try too often to be someone else. And I know that's not where you were necessarily leading, but be the best version of you. And that's for a young lady out there. That's for a young man out there. That's anyone. Create your own identity. There are no limits of what you can be or do. So don't put yourself, in that box. I think, with the draft yesterday, and I don't even know his name, I apologize, but whoever I think the Giants drafted asked if he could wear Lawrence Taylor's number. And LT said no. And it wasn't selfish. It was like, I don't want you to be limited. I want you to go create your own identity. And that just really resonated with me. And I think that message needs to be told to every athlete, every young person out there. Because we often say, hey, look at what so-and-so's do, be like them, do that. No, learn from them, but go be the best version of you.
Yeah, that's there's not a better way to cap this one off, huh, Dave?
No, that's a clip for sure. That's an amazing answer. Yeah, I love that. At the end of the day, you got yourself, right? Be the best that you can be and keep going.
You got
God
it.
created us to be unique. So go be that unique version of yourself.
Tami Matheny, this has been an absolute blast having you on this morning. Just know, like, you fill my cup. Dave has not stopped smiling the last 30 minutes. That's a sign of a good conversation. And Tami, you are an amazing influence for so many young student athletes, coaches, anybody that's going to listen. We appreciate your time today.
Well, I appreciate what you guys do and for having me on.
Always. And Tami, I have to let you plug your socials. I know you have a lot of stuff cooking right now. So go ahead. Where can athletes and coaches find you?
Twitter, Tami Matheny. Instagram, Tami Matheny Coaching, as well as Challenger Deep Podcast. I have a lot of Facebook groups as well. I have one for parents in the mental game, The Confident Athlete. And you can find everything under my website, TamiMatheny.com.
And I have to give one more shout out to Heather Gage for making this
Yes.
all connected. I love Heather Gage, and I love how the world works in connections like this. And if you haven't listened to Heather Gage's episode of Challenger Deep, shameless plug, go check that out as well. Perfect. All right, guys. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your day and keep going.
All right. Thank you guys both. Dave, nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you.